dull of hearing, and their eyes they have closed, lest at any time they should see with their eyes, hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and should be converted, and I should heal them. But blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. For verily I say unto you, that many prophets and righteous men have desired to see those things which you see, and have not seen them, and to hear those things which you hear, and have not heard them. So therefore, hear the parable of the sower. The word of the kingdom, they understand it not, and so on. Every part has a meaning that fits together with one overall meaning. Now let's go up here to get the explanation of the wheat and the tares. Verse 36, Yeshua sent the multitude away and went into the house. The disciples came unto him, saying, explain unto us the parable of the tares in the field, because they didn't get it. If a parable so simple, they would have got it, but no, they didn't understand it. What are you talking about? All right, you guys. Verse 37, he answered and said unto them, he that sows the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world. The good seed are the children of the kingdom. The tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy that sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are the angels. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this age. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels. They shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them that do iniquity, and shall cast them into the furnace of fire. There shall be burning, wailing, and gnashing of teeth. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Whoever has the ears to hear, let him hear. So a parable has one main meaning, but every part has a meaning that contributes to it. Now we may not know or figure out the meaning of every part, but every part has a meaning. This means that, this means this means this, and so on. All right, let's go back to verse 33 and figure it out. The kingdom of heaven is, spoke he, the kingdom of heaven is like leaven, compared to leaven, which a woman took and hid in 3 measures of meal, till the whole was leavened. Now, let me tell you what leaven is chemically. Leaven is yeast, or an enzyme. An enzyme is something that causes actions in a material. All right? You take wheat, flour, and with water and this enzyme, yeast, it will cause the destruction of the carbohydrate wheat molecule. It will break it up into carbon dioxide gas, which is what you want to cause the bread to rise, and water and some other byproducts. You don't care about the byproducts, but it's called sourdough because if you don't stop it in time, it will become sour and rotten. Now, when I was up in Alaska years ago, not with my family, but the other missions, I was taken to a restaurant in the summertime that served sourdough pancakes. And they made them with sourdough from the previous time, that was made from the previous time, back for more than 100 years. They never started a new batch, but it always kept going with the sourdough pancakes. But if you let it go far, it's too far, it's rotten, and you throw it away. It's a corrupting agent. That's why it's a symbol of sin. Leaven is an enzyme that corrupts or destroys or breaks down the molecules that it gets in contact with. All right, so yes?
For
Yeah, make the bread to rise, and then when you're satisfied, you bake it and kill it. You kill the enzyme. It stops. All right? The kingdom is compared to leaven, which a woman took and hid in 3 measures of meal till the whole was leavened. Now you had a hint back in Genesis 18. When 3 men came to visit Abraham. One was Yeshua, 2 were angels. And Abraham quickly tells the servant to kill a young kid and roast the meat. And he tells Sarah to make 3 measures of meal into some bread. 3 measures of meal, because there's 3 people there. Now, how are you going to put all that together? In the Philippines, we say, mahirap. Very difficult. Or mas mahirap, very difficult. So while you're thinking of it, I'm going to get a group picture. You know, at home in Florida, we have our TV screen is on all day long with pictures from a computer with hundreds and hundreds of pictures over the years. And they pop up random. So we put this on there, and every once in a while we will see your picture. And when Naomi wants to watch the news or something, then we change it to the regular TV program, which we don't do very often, but it's on all day. When you sit there and you're eating or something, about every 8 seconds a picture comes up, and it keeps reminding us of people at various times. In 2004, our picture at Chiquina with the girls and so on there, and it comes up every once in a while. So we have to have our picture memory book and all that. Okay, anybody want to come up with a solution? All right, leaven is sin. You got one?
Maybe it's because the leaven is not, it has action, but it doesn't do dramatically in that instant. It spreads slowly.
Yeah, it spreads slowly, definitely.
So maybe the influence, our influence spreads slowly, but the impact is big.
Our influence?
Israel's.
Wait a second, this is sin.
Sin.
It's sin that a woman put in 3 measures of meal. 3 measures of meal would be for 3 persons. Because originally with Sarah, she made 3 big pizza style without any topping on it. That's the kind of bread they ate, not matzah. 1 for Yeshua and 1 for each angel. All right. Now this is not 100% sure, but this is the best I can do. And you see if it might fit. When Jacob got his 2 wives and the 2 maids, and he left Laban secretly, and Laban found out and chased after him. Didn't appreciate leaving like that, but God told him, get out of here, so he took off. Jacob was obeying God. So when Laban caught up with them, what was his problem? Yeah. Somebody has stolen my gods. These idols that he had that he represented his gods. He's an idolater. So Jacob, I don't know anything about it. Go ahead and search everybody here. If anybody's found with them, why, you can execute them, whatever. Who had them? Rachel. Where'd she hide them? Underneath, and she sat on the saddle that would be on the camel. And she said, sorry, my menstruation is now and I can't get up. All right. Later on, Jacob finds out she had him. Why was Laban so angry about it? Those idols represented the owner of all his property. Those are localized gods from that area. And whoever had those idols was just like a property deed. And Rachel was fed up with her father, and Leah also, because he sold them to Jacob. 7 years of labor. They were sold just like chattel, you know. They weren't very happy about that. So she stole the gods to get revenge against her father. If her father died, they could come back and claim all of that land territory that he owned. But of course, Jacob was not interested when he found out, because God's going to give us the land of Canaan. All right? Jacob finally found out, and they buried all of those idols under the oak in Shechem. All right, now this is my theory. Rachel had those idols, and they were not really convinced of believers at that time. But sin entered with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Jacob down through the sons. And it began to spread throughout Israel over the centuries, slowly, slowly, until it got so bad that the northern kingdom was destroyed, 722 BC. And then the southern kingdom was destroyed, and this beautiful temple was destroyed in 586 BC. When they came back from Babylon under Zerubbabel, Israel was cured of idolatry. Never since that time have they ever had any idols. But of course, other sins came in. So that's my idea, because it took a woman to hide it in the patriarchs and the family descent. I've read different interpretations of this thing, and I say, it doesn't fit. My interpretation seems to fit the best I can do, but I won't give my life for it. But it's difficult. You see how it is? It's not a simple story. It's involved. Okay, let's go on. We got to quit by 9 o'clock, you know. It's only got 20 minutes. Of course, we had to finish session 3 first. 16, 13 to 19 was my message at Beth Shekinah. And actually, it's not Shekinah. That's not Hebrew. When I was in Jerusalem with a class in Genesis, the teacher was trying to get me to say it correctly in Hebrew. Shekinah is the way he do it. Not Shekinah. But that's all right. That's Americanism, Canadianism. So you have the paraphrase there. Chapter 24 and 25 will be in the others in chapter 3. Mark. The disciples asked Yeshua why he taught in parables. So in 8:4 he says, and he said to them, okay, we've covered that already in Matthew. But my question is this fair to everyone? That some would be given the ability to understand and the others would be blinded. Is that fair?
Yes.
Yes. This is the sovereignty of God. He can do what he wants. Now in Benawi, we lived among the wood carvers. He cuts down a tree and he decides what he wants to do with that tree. Maybe he's going to cut it in some 2x4s and make his house or sell them to me. Or maybe he's going to make some wood carvings. Or maybe he's going to make firewood. He has the choice. God is the creator. He's the sovereign. He can do whatever he wants with his creation. And so you have in, I think it's Jeremiah, can the clay complain against the potter? The potter can make what he wants out of that clay. So we're just vessels of clay. Be what God wants you to be and be a vessel of honor.
Amen.
And so on. Okay. 10:40 to 45, Mark. Leadership and ambition. And oh boy, human nature sure gets in. And we find what Yeshua says in Mark 10:40 to 45. John and James, they're the sons of Zebedee, James and John, who want to be sitting on his right hand and left hand. And he said, no, boys, I can't do that. But to sit on my right hand, verse 40, and on my left hand is not mine to give, but it shall be given to them whom is prepared. And when the 10 heard it, come on, you guys. But Yeshua called them to him and said to him, you know that they who are counted to rule over the Gentiles exercise lordship over them, domineering, and their great ones exercise authority upon them. But so shall it not be among you. Whoever would be great among you must be your minister. In Greek is diakonos, like a deacon. And whoever of you would be the chief shall be servant of all. Servant doulos, a bond slave. For even the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister and to give his life a ransom forever. So if God ever puts you in leadership in the ecclesia, be sure you serve him, and in serving him, you serve the people. All right, we'll figure out when Yeshua was born. Yeshua's birth. All right, briefly, you have it here in Luke chapter 1, and that will give you all the documentation. But Luke 1 starts off. For as much as many taken in hand to set forth in declaration and most surely believe, for even us delivered unto us from the beginning. It said good to me also to do this. Verse 5. There was in the days of Herod the king of Judea a certain priest named Zacharias of the course of Abijah, and his wife of the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. All right, that's a clue. You go back in Chronicles, David reorganized the priesthood in 24 courses. You serve for a month, and then you go home. I mean, for a week of 8 days. On Shabbat, there are 2 courses, except during Passover week and Sukkot week, which is a whole week long, and all of them serve them. So we have 24 courses. You serve a week, including a Shabbat, and then you go home. Then you come back 6 months later and you serve another week with Shabbat to Shabbat. And then, of course, you're all there for Passover week and the other. That takes care of the weeks of the year. So he's the course of Abijah. So you go back there and you figure out everybody's on duty on Passover. All right? Then the next is the course 1 for a week, and then the course 2, and the course Abijah is what number? 8. So then he goes home, and Elizabeth gets pregnant. And you figure out the 9 months of gestation, and you're going to find out that Yochanan, the son, is going to be born at Passover time. And Yeshua, according to the angel that told Miriam, your cousin Elizabeth is already 6 months pregnant. So Yeshua is 6 months behind, so he's born at the time of Sukkot. Very clear. So how do we get December 25? You know when it came in for Christmas? Over 400 years after Yeshua. Nobody's celebrating it. But you know, from Constantine, everybody had to be, no, it wasn't Constantine. He made it legal. And then about 50 years later, another bishop or an emperor of Rome, Theodosius, I think it was, that made it obligatory. You had to be in the church. It's a church now, but it's outside of Messianic. And all the pagans were illegal. So everything became that way. All right. So, they could not defeat paganism. So in the 400s, the leaders of the Vatican decided, look, the people enjoy the festival of the god Saturn, called the Saturnalia. Why don't we declare that Jesus was born on the same day? And they can celebrate, and we will celebrate all together. We're doing the birth of Jesus, and they're doing the birth of Saturn. The pagan gods or goddesses, you know, these Nephilim, they're all born on December 25. And I gave you a whole list. I think you already had that handout long ago. Okay, December 25 becomes a day. After a while, the pagan idea kind of died down or intermingled. So in the Christmas celebration, we have our Christmas trees, which is pagan. We have all the rest of the pagan stuff. Okay, so we know when Yeshua was born. And you should know this. So you talk with your church people that are so insistent, and even Messianics, they're so insistent about Christmas. Yeah, some Messianics still celebrate Christmas. They think it's legit. Of course, they got one foot in the church. That's where the money comes from. Okay, Luke chapter 21, 20 to 24. I'm going to keep going, and we'll do Q&A tomorrow. All right, the Jewish revolt of 66 CE predicted, and times of the Gentiles. How many of you have heard in your church times of the Gentiles? That's part of dispensational theology. The times of the Gentiles. And they say it began with Nebuchadnezzar conquering Jerusalem, and from that time Israel is set aside. Replacement theology. And from that time, Israel is nothing until Yeshua returns. Okay, well that's a bunch of baloney. Now, Luke 21:20. Very interesting. And when you shall see Jerusalem surrounded with armies, then know that its destruction is what?
Near.
Near. Does that mean imminent? No. Near is not imminent. Imminent means it can happen right now. No, it's near. It's coming. But not quite yet. Then let them who are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them who are in the midst of it depart, and let not them that are in the countries enter into it. For these are the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe to them that are with child, and to them that nurse children in those days. For there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, shall be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Are the times of the Gentiles fulfilled? Yes. Jerusalem will be trodden down by the Gentiles until their time is over. When was that time over? 6-Day War. June 7, 1967, when Israel retook the old city and stupidly gave control over the Temple Mount because this Moshe Dayan, the chief of staff, was so secular he didn't care about it. Made a lot of trouble. Okay, now what's the history here? This is Yeshua talking. And he's already gone back to heaven by 33, 34 AD, something like that, maybe earlier. But in 66 AD or CE, the Zealots, the very patriotic guys, rebelled against Rome. They're called the Zealots. They're also called the Sicarii. What's Sicarii? A curved dagger that they carried. And they were assassins. They would kill anybody that's going to collaborate with Rome. And so they called a rebellion against Rome, killed a bunch of them, and Rome comes with an army against Jerusalem and surrounds Jerusalem. What are you going to do? It says here, when you see Jerusalem surrounded with armies, know that its desolation is what? Near, but not today. Now the Messianics, by history, the Messianics knew this prophecy. So Jerusalem is surrounded, and they know that its desolation is near. But he says, let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let those in the midst depart, but for the days of vengeance, and so on. They had a confidence that God would give them a way to escape. So according to the histories, Josephus primarily, Cestius Gallus was the commander of the Roman army at that time, 66. And for some strange reason, he withdrew his forces. Critical at that time, the factions within Jerusalem. You got some that want to surrender to Rome, some in the middle don't know what to do, some guys on the other side that want to fight and kill Rome and kill anybody that wants to collaborate. So the history of Israel really is they defeat themselves by their factions within, fighting within each other. And so the enemy just waits until they fight each other, and then they come in and take over. both times when the temples were destroyed. So anyway, for some reason, he withdrew his forces, and they don't know why. No history that I can find will tell me why he withdrew. So the zealots came out and attacked the rear guard of the Roman army and really made them a mess. So that made Rome mad. So, during that interlude, the Messianic believers, which were at that time probably a third of the population. You know, when Paul came back on his journey and he came to the big shots there to report, and they say, you know, brother, how many myriads of Jews are believing? What's myriads? Your Bible says thousands. No, myriads is tens of thousands. So 20, 30, 40 thousands of believers in Jerusalem. It's tremendous, and many of the priests are believing. Okay, at this time, a good proportion of Jerusalem are Messianic believers. When Cestius Gallus withdrew his forces, the Messianics had already prepared ahead. They'd sold whatever they had. They were ready to go. And they evacuated Jerusalem, went down to Jericho, crossed over, went about 2/3 of the way up on the eastern side of the Jordan River to a town called Pella, not as far as the Sea of Galilee. And they gathered there. The rest of the Jews have never forgiven the Messianics for abandoning them when they were ready to fight Rome. They still hold it against them, deserting. But no, they're foolish. God told them, you get out when I give you a chance. Your desolation will be near, but it's not today. And so they got out, and when the Roman army came back again under Vespasian, and then under Titus, his son, why, it was too late. There's no escape. Now, we'll get more on that when we get to Daniel chapter 9. 70 weeks are given to your people and so on. That's on Sunday afternoon. So this is a little preview. So Jerusalem destroyed and is trampled down by one country after another for all these centuries until Israel retook it June 7, 1967. The time of the Gentiles to trample down the old city of Jerusalem is over. Is anybody going to get it back? No. Oh, they talk about it. The Palestinians want it. They want Israel out, period, but it's not going to happen. Now, is the sun going to come up tomorrow? Yeah? What's that mean? Israel's here to stay. That's Jeremiah 31, 35 to 37. Does the sun or moon ever stop their regular function? Only then Israel will cease to be a nation. Now, Israel's here forever. It's the #1 nation. Okay, I'm going to quit there. Oh, we got a lot of exciting stuff coming up yet. I can hardly wait. All right, but we'll wait till tomorrow. Okay, Noel, what else you want to say?